2 hydrangeas. Same variety, bought the same day from the same garden center, planted the same weekend on opposite sides of the same garden. Same rainfall. Same soil. Same everything. One of them is now a dense, architectural shrub with flower heads the size of dinner plates, throwing bloom after bloom from midsummer deep into autumn. The other is a loose, floppy, underwhelming plant with small pale flowers that fade fast and stems that flop over in the first rain. Same plant. Same garden. Wildly different results. The gap comes down to 7 things the bigger plant got that the smaller one didn't. 7 tricks that quietly double or triple the speed and vigor a hydrangea grows. And none of them are the standard advice you've already read everywhere. Drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching from and what season you're in. I read every single one. Trick number 4 is the one I need you to stay for. It looks like destruction. It feels like the worst thing you could possibly do to a healthy plant. And it is one of the most powerful growth triggers in hydrangea growing. Don't skip ahead. Trick 1. Get the light timing right, not just the hours. The standard advice is 6 hours of sun. That's technically correct and practically useless without the next sentence. The timing of those 6 hours decides almost everything about how fast your hydrangea grows and how long it blooms. Here is the mechanism. Hydrangeas photosynthesize most efficiently in the cooler morning hours when leaf temperature is lower and the plant's stomata, the tiny pores that exchange gases, are fully open. Morning light also dries dew off the leaves within the first hour, which is your primary defense against the fungal diseases that rob a hydrangea of the leaf area it needs to power growth. Afternoon sun is the opposite. Past 2 or 3 in the afternoon, the heat stress on the leaves causes the stomata to close as a protective measure. The plant is essentially shutting down photosynthesis to prevent water loss. Hours of afternoon sun that feel generous are hours the plant is actually idling. The fast-growing hydrangea gets morning sun from an east or northeast exposure, 3 to 5 hours of direct early light followed by shade or dappled light through the hottest part of the day. The slow one is getting afternoon western exposure that looks bright but is mostly stress, not fuel. If your hydrangeas are already planted in a western exposure and can't be moved, and for established plants, moving them is genuinely risky, the practical fix is to create afternoon shade artificially. A tall ornamental grass, a trellis with a fast-growing annual vine, or even a strategically placed garden structure on the western side can cut that harsh afternoon exposure without disturbing the roots. Trick 2. Water the root zone deeply, and mulch so it stays that way. Hydrangeas have a specific watering vulnerability almost no other common garden plant shares. Their leaves are so large they lose water through evaporation at a dramatically faster rate than the roots can replace it during heat. This means a hydrangea can be in active water deficit even when the soil feels moist, because the leaves are evaporating faster than the root system is absorbing. The fix is not watering more frequently. It is watering more deeply and protecting the soil between waterings with mulch. Deep watering, a slow, thorough soak twice a week rather than a quick splash daily, trains the roots to drive downward into cooler, more consistently moist soil layers. A plant with deep roots has a buffer against dry spells and heat waves that a shallowly rooted plant never develops. A 3-inch layer of organic mulch over the root zone cuts soil moisture evaporation by up to 40%. For a plant that's constantly fighting to stay hydrated through those massive leaves, that 40% difference is the margin between a plant that grows steadily and one that keeps hitting water stress pauses that interrupt growth. Keep the mulch pulled 2 inches back from the main stems. Volcano-piled mulch against the crown traps moisture against the most rot-vulnerable part of the plant. Trick 3. Feed phosphorus before bloom, not nitrogen all season. Most gardeners reach for a high nitrogen fertilizer because nitrogen produces lush, fast, visibly satisfying green growth. On hydrangeas, nitrogen-heavy feeding all season is the exact reason so many plants look healthy but produce disappointing flowers. Here is the biology. Nitrogen drives vegetative growth, stems and leaves. Phosphorus drives root development and flower production. A hydrangea that's been fed heavily with nitrogen has been told, repeatedly, to invest in foliage. It listens. You get a big leafy plant with small, sparse, short-lived flower heads. The rhythm that produces maximum blooms and maximum growth simultaneously, a balanced fertilizer in early spring as growth breaks dormancy, the NPK middle number equal to or higher than the first number, followed by a phosphorus-forward feed as the plant approaches its blooming period. Something with an NPK ratio like October 30th, 10 applied 4 to 6 weeks before expected bloom time shifts the plant's energy allocation toward flower production at the exact moment it needs that signal. Hard stop. No fertilizer after midsummer. Late-season feeding pushes soft new growth that can't harden before cold arrives, and on old wood bloomers specifically, that soft late growth is where next year's flower buds form. Tender tissue going into winter is how you lose an entire season of blooms to a single frost. Exact amount. Follow label directions for your specific fertilizer, but err toward half strength on the phosphorus feed if your plant is in its first or second year. Young root systems can be burned by full-strength phosphorus applications. Trick 4. Cut it down hard in late winter, even when it looks perfectly healthy. This is the one. And I need you to read this carefully before you decide it's wrong. 4 panicle hydrangeas, the cone-flowering varieties like Limelight, Winky, and Quickfire, and for smooth hydrangeas like Annabelle and Incredible, the single most powerful thing you can do for dramatically faster growth and dramatically larger flower heads is to cut the entire plant down to 12 to 18 inches from the ground in late winter, while it's dormant and looks completely fine. Not because it's sick. Not because it's overgrown. Because of what happens next. Here is the mechanism. These varieties bloom on new growth produced in the current season. When you leave the old framework in place, the plant distributes its root system stored energy across dozens or even hundreds of existing growing points. Every old stem tip pushes a small shoot, and you get a large number of weak, thin new stems. Those thin stems produce small flower heads and flop over under the weight. When you cut the plant hard, you concentrate that same root energy, which is enormous in an established plant, into a small number of new growing points. The plant responds with thick, strong, fast new canes that grow dramatically faster than the thin ones would have, and the flower heads those canes produce are 2 to 3 times larger than what an unpruned plant manages. The practical proof: Annabelle hydrangeas left unpruned produce dozens of small white balls. The same plant cut to 12 inches every late winter produces far fewer stems covered in flower heads so large they're used as centerpieces at weddings. Critical caveat: this trick does not apply to Bigleaf hydrangeas, the classic pink and blue mopheads, or to Oakleaf hydrangeas. These bloom on old wood. Cut them down and you've removed every flower bud for the season. Know your variety before you pick up the pruners. If you're unsure which type you have, look at when it blooms and whether it bloomed on old stems or entirely new growth last season. For the plants this applies to, do it late February or early March before the buds break. It feels like destruction. The plant's response will change your mind permanently. Trick 5. Manipulate soil pH to unlock nutrients and control color simultaneously. Most gardeners know soil pH affects hydrangea flower color. Almost none of them understand that pH also directly controls how fast the plant grows, and that the connection between the two is the same mechanism. Here is what's actually happening. Bigleaf hydrangeas produce blue flowers when aluminum is available in the soil, pink flowers when it isn't. Aluminum availability is controlled entirely by pH. Acidic soil below 6.0 makes aluminum soluble and available. Alkaline soil above 6.5 locks it out. But aluminum isn't the only nutrient that gets locked out above 6.5. Iron, manganese, and several micronutrients the plant needs for cell division and growth all become less available as pH rises. A hydrangea in soil with a pH of 7.0 or above isn't just producing pink flowers. It's running on a restricted nutrient supply that slows every growth process simultaneously. The plant looks healthy, but it's operating below its potential. Test your soil pH. A basic kit from any garden center gives you a result in 2 minutes. 4 bigleaf hydrangeas. Target pH 5.5 to 6.0 for blue flowers and maximum nutrient availability. 4 pink. Target 6.5 to 7.0. 4 panicle and smooth hydrangeas. Target 6.0 to 6.5. These are less pH sensitive but still perform better in the slightly acidic range. To lower pH, work elemental sulfur into the soil at the drip line, 1 pound per 100 square feet for a moderate correction, in autumn. For a faster shift, aluminum sulfate dissolved in water at 1 tablespoon per gallon applied monthly moves pH within weeks. To raise pH toward pink, garden lime, applied once in spring at the label rate. One application won't permanently fix pH. Test once a season and adjust as needed. Consistent pH management is what keeps the nutrient system open year-round. Trick 6. Give it a magnesium wake-up in spring. This trick is small, cheap, and produces one of the most visually immediate responses of anything on this list, which is why it appears in the comment sections of every hydrangea video we've ever studied, shared by gardeners who stumbled onto it by accident and couldn't explain why it worked. Magnesium sits at the literal center of every chlorophyll molecule. It is the element that makes leaves green and enables photosynthesis. When a hydrangea is short on magnesium, which happens commonly in heavily watered gardens where rain and irrigation leach it from the soil faster than it's replaced, the older leaves yellow between the veins while the veins themselves stay green. The plant looks diseased. It isn't. It's deficient. A magnesium-deficient hydrangea is running its photosynthesis engine at reduced capacity. Less chlorophyll means less light captured means less energy for growth and bloom production. The deficit compounds. A slower growing plant is a plant less capable of recovering from stress, which makes it more susceptible to disease, which slows it further. The fix: dissolve 1 tablespoon of Epsom salt, magnesium sulfate, available at any pharmacy for a few dollars, into 1 gallon of water. Apply this solution to the soil around the drip line of your hydrangea once in early spring and again in early summer. For a faster visible response, dilute 1 teaspoon per gallon and spray directly onto the leaves. The plant absorbs magnesium through its leaf surface as well as its roots. The green-up typically appears within 7 to 10 days of application. New growth comes in darker and more vigorous. This is not a miracle, it's chemistry. But it reliably produces results fast enough that gardeners who try it once use it every season afterward. Trick 7. Plant a living mulch at the base, and let it do work your garden can't. The last trick is the one that separates gardeners who maintain hydrangeas from gardeners who build systems around them, and the difference in long-term performance between the two approaches is significant. A bare root zone around a hydrangea is a management problem you're choosing to have permanently. The soil heats in summer, cools in winter, dries between waterings, and provides no biological activity to support the root system. You compensate by watering more, mulching more, and fertilizing more, all of which take your time and attention. A living mulch changes the equation. Low-growing companion plants, hardy geraniums, hostas, coral bells, ajaga, planted in a ring around the drip line of your hydrangea do several things simultaneously that dead mulch cannot. Their root systems hold moisture and prevent compaction. Their leaf cover shades the soil and keeps the root zone of your hydrangea cool without the crown rot risk of piled organic mulch. As they shed leaves and roots naturally, they feed the soil biology that feeds your hydrangea's roots. And they create the kind of stable, consistent root environment that lets a hydrangea grow without interruption rather than in stress and recovery cycles. Choose companions that won't compete aggressively. Shallow-rooted, low-growing plants that stay under 12 inches work best. Keep them 6 to 8 inches back from the hydrangea's main stems so air flows freely at the crown. This is not just aesthetics, it's infrastructure. A hydrangea with a healthy living understory grows measurably faster and more consistently than one in bare soil or dead mulch alone. Now go back to those 2 hydrangeas at the start, the dense, dinner plate flowering one and the floppy, pale, underwhelming one growing a few feet away. The difference was never about luck or natural talent or having better soil to begin with. The faster plant got morning sun so it could photosynthesize efficiently without afternoon heat stress. It got deep watering and proper mulch so its roots stayed consistently hydrated. It got phosphorus before bloom instead of nitrogen all season. It got cut hard in late winter so its root energy concentrated into fewer, stronger, faster canes. It got consistent pH management so its nutrients were never locked away. It got a magnesium correction in spring so its chlorophyll engine ran at full power. And its root zone was protected by a living system that worked around the clock without anyone tending it. The smaller plant got none of that. Not because it was a worse plant. Because nobody told its owner these 7 things. Do even 4 or 5 of these and you will see a measurable difference in your hydrangeas this season. Not next year, this year. Which trick are you trying first? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and the answers shape what I cover next. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next video, because we go this deep on every plant that people are getting wrong. I'll see you in 2 days.